put the children to bed. It's time for Dan and Aldo to bare their souls.
I love the Chicago Bears more than I do masturbating, and that is a lot.
Then, with 3 seconds left, Bob Avellini throws a 30-something-yard touchdown pass to Greg Latta, and the Bears win, and I literally shit my pants. I swear to God, I literally did.
Eric Kramer, for me, I love the guy. He's a tragic figure. I mean, he embodies all that is.
If they don't run the ball here, I'm going to vomit. I swear to God.
Look, I don't mean any disrespect. He just didn't play that well. Not for a guy of his caliber.
You know, they won, but I'm going to be miserable all week because they stunk.
I don't really have any recollection of that at all, but I guess perhaps I blacked it all out.
So, Dan, tape is the ultimate tool for scouts and for coaches to evaluate players, to detect plays and so forth. And they spend hours looking at tape, right? Why do they so often get shit wrong?
Ladies and gentlemen, Dan and Aldo.
Every time I hear that applause, I have this image of Dan Aguire stepping out into the center of the stage and taking a bow. Dan, how are you, my friend?
Hey, we're 2-0. I'm happy. How about you?
I am happy, too. I don't care. You know, that open, I say, I don't care, I'm miserable, they lost. No, I'm happy. They're 2-0, and I see a lot of promise in this football team. I see a lot of promise in Mitchell Trubisky. I see a lot of promise in how this offensive line can continue to improve throughout the year. I see a lot of promise in the running game. The glass is half full for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, I've been hearing a lot of criticism of, once again, I feel like it's a lot of double talk, and I don't want to sound like I feel like my opinion is valid and mine's the only pure one, because that's not the case. But I've been hearing about, you know, how the offense hasn't been pulling its weight again and all this shit, and I've been thoroughly impressed 2 weeks in a row with the running game. Of course, people have made excuses and say that it's the defense they've been playing, and Green Bay did better against the run versus the Lions than the Bears did, so that somehow negates the Bears' effort. And the runs against the Giants were just tremendous. Remember, they late in the fourth quarter they were backed up because of the guy, I can never remember his name, the new right guard, the big guy, before.
Jermaine Ifedi.
Feedy, he had the penalty. I guess it was a chop block.
Correct.
And it was, second and 25 or first and 25, whatever. Then Montgomery rips off like a 23-yard carry there. Right. I mean, I was absolutely ecstatic with the run game. I don't want to steal Kaplan's thought, but I remember hearing him saying on the radio, and I so agreed with that. You're breaking off all these runs with Montgomery, then why run the gimmick gadget play to Patterson on the short side of the field? And I thought about this before, not to go on a rant already. I told you a long time ago that one of my old friends, he's not my friend anymore, but he had gained a little bit of notoriety for attacking Trump on the independent wrestling scene. Mm-hmm. And his character was named the progressive liberal Daniel Richards. Right. So, but the reason I bring that up, because if you think about wrestling psychology just for a moment, and I know we've got several people that on our network here that have like to talk about wrestling. One of the criticisms of people when they're booking wrestling is a lot of times people just want to get in all their shit. And it's like it convolutes things, and they're just so concerned about getting in all the stuff that they know they can do. Mm-hmm. And that's what the criticism of a match, sometimes there's just too much shit in. That's what Matt Nagy does. He's just kind of like, well, wait a minute, I've got this fucking short-sighted jet sweep. We haven't run that yet in the second half. So it's like he's constantly trying to get all of his shit in versus going with the flow of the game. That's my only criticism this week of the coach. I even heard people ripping him when he said in the postgame that we're just okay right now. I mean, I thought that was, I've been on him for being dishonest. I thought that was a moment of clarity.
Yep.
He's like, yeah, I get it, man. We should have closed this game out, and we're just okay. Again, what's he supposed to say?
Yeah, he's not going to lie and say, yeah, I think we're doing great. I think we're one of the better off. No, come on. He's not going to do that. He couldn't get away with it. And he's speaking the truth. They are just okay. They are just okay on offense. They are just okay on defense. They are a little less than okay on special teams. But I'm happy because I see a team that can get better and better. I see Mitchell Trubisky having an outstanding first half that could have been much better if Anthony Miller, in his diving attempt to make that catch, holds on to that ball. And that's a ball he should have caught because he is capable of making that. And there was somebody, I posted the 5-second replay of Miller not coming up with it, and somebody on Twitter said, it's a bad throw. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? That throw could not be any better, given that Miller really didn't get any separation, or if he did, not much at all. That throw was the only place it could have gone to and been placed for a touchdown. And unfortunately, Miller will tell you that it was his fault. And Allen Robinson talked about it at the Wednesday press conference that Miller was down on himself and he had to go and give him a pep talk regarding it. So, there were issues. And then the interception to begin the third quarter, that was the Allen Robinson play. No, that wasn't the Allen Robinson play. That was
I think they were both to Robinson.
Oh,
though.
that's right. That's right.
Real quick, if you don't mind me saying,
no, not at all.
Again, I obviously want the Bears to re-sign Robinson, and yes. I'm not trying to be coy and imply otherwise, but let's just say for just a second that Robinson would be gone next year and Mitch would be back, just for a second.
Okay.
That seems to be what made Brett Favre a better quarterback. And again, not trying to say Mitch is going to be Brett Favre, but early on in his career, he zeroed in on Sterling Sharp too much. Mm-hmm. And when Sharp got hurt in the 94 season, which of course forced him to retire, which, as a Bear fan, that was cool. But as just a person, and not trying to be a dick, that wasn't cool because this guy's whole livelihood got taken from him and he would have been a Hall of Famer probably.
Right.
But point is, it made Favre a better player because he started to have to find people like Robert Brooks and other receivers. Maybe that's what I'm saying with Trubisky on that. I don't necessarily want to blame Allen Robinson or Mitch. The first throw was probably in a contested or congested area, but that's normally a high percentage pass there for Mitch to Robinson. And the second one, again, you don't want to point any blame, and I'm not trying to say his contract had anything to do with it. I think that's insanity to suggest that. I don't think he's thinking about that on the field. I mean, if he got hurt, I could see him thinking about that on the field, but not in the heat of the moment. That's a play he normally makes. So both of them, and again, I'm a Trubisky defender. I guess I'm kind of like Greg Braggs in that regard, but I thought I could live with both throws. Because more than likely, Robinson's going to make both of those plays.
I totally agree with you. And by the way, Allen Robinson himself admitted, that he should have made that jump ball catch. Let's listen to him real quickly.
Yeah, again, I've made a career on making tough catches. So whenever I'm not, making those plays, it can be frustrating. But, again, that, I'm saying, that's all for real. I got to make that play.
Yeah, he was frustrated with himself, and so a reporter asked, why were you so frustrated, and kind of trying to figure out, were you upset at the throw? And no, he took full accountability. I thought that the ball could have been placed a little bit better, a little bit higher, a little bit further. It wasn't a 100% accurate throw, but nonetheless, Robinson had it, and it was taken away, and so that was much more on A-Rob than it was on Mitch, in my opinion.
Or we could just credit the guy from the Giants.
How about it? Absolutely.
Making a great play, which is what he's paid to do.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And if that were Kyle Fuller, we would be praising, oh my God, what a play, and rightfully so. So maybe that's not necessarily Trubisky's fault. Maybe it's not Allen Robinson's fault. Sometimes those plays go against you.
I'm with you 100%. Now,
and I hope he makes the same throw this week. I think if he throws it up again against the Falcons, Robinson's going to catch it.
I love the way you think, because I totally agree with that. Totally agree. I have, not that anybody really wants to know about my fantasy football team, but I do have Allen Robinson on my one and only fantasy football team. And so I think that he's going to have an outstanding day against the Atlanta Falcons secondary. But we'll see. That's up to him, not up to me. Now, every week, on Monday, you pour through the radio and listen to what the commentators are saying, right? And then you piece together a segment. We should come up with a name for this segment.
I think it's fun. It kind of gives us some talking points, and if people are listening, which I hope they are, maybe they haven't listened to those shows, and it gives them a summary of what the talking points are for that day. So this week, I'll give attribution to ESPN Radio, to The Score, to Hogan Johns, and to WGN.
Excellent. Let's play that now.
Mitchell is not an NFL quarterback. That's it. Plain and simple. And if, Ed, I know that you get after Nagy, but what do you do if your boss tells you that this is your starting guy, he's your go-to guy, and you've got to figure out how to game plan with the worst quarterback in the National Football League? They're going to look bad, and hopefully by hook and by crook, they win more games than they lose until we get rid of Pace. Once Pace is gone, maybe Nagy could be a good coach. I just don't know, because right now he's tied up with a horrible quarterback.
Glenn, and just exactly what the hell is it that we do? We do nothing. Nothing. We don't do a damn thing. We don't convert on third down. We don't throw down the field, and we don't utilize our tight ends. Now, whose fault is that?
Ed.
That's Nagy.
That's the quarterback's fault. The
quarterback who's telling them what to do?
Ed,
who's coaching them and telling them what to do? Who?
It's
Nagy.
Quarterback.
I kept thinking about that Anthony Miller drop in the end zone and what that would have done for Trubisky, because that's a rhythm timing throw right through his hands, a drop touchdown. That would have felt great for Trubisky. Matt Nagy called it a dime. It was a dime. I felt like that stuck with them a bit.
With 6 minutes left in the third quarter, the Bears were 9 of 12 on third down. Mitch was 10 of 12 completing passes on those third downs. And 2 of the ones they didn't get, one was that drop touchdown we talked about with Anthony Miller. Basically, at that point in the game, Trubisky had been close to perfect on third down. And then there was that other pass that Anthony Miller didn't catch.
The 3rd and 6 out of bounds?
Yes, but it hit him in the hands.
Both hands.
Yeah, they didn't earn a lot of style points Sunday afternoon at Soldier Field, but NFL standings don't have a column for those, at least not the ones that I pay attention to. So very, very fortunate to be 2-0, off to a good start with the victories over a couple teams that were not expected to be very good and don't look very good.
Mitchell Trubisky looks outstanding first half. I thought Allen Robinson on the sideline, he's got to come up with that ball.
Yes.
Great play by
Bradbury.
Bradbury ripped it out of his hands, but when Allen has it cradled like he did, you can't allow the guy to steal that ball from you. Cannot. But that happened. The thing that really irks me, this is a 17-13 game. David Montgomery, this is, by the way, the drive started with 7:36 left in the game. 11-yard game. Next play, David Montgomery left tackle to Chicago 45 for 10 yards. Mm-hmm. Olin Kreutz turns to us and says, go watch Cody Whitehair. He's destroying the man over him. Mm-hmm. Not just blocking him, he's literally destroying him. So you've gone for 11, you've gone for 10. What's the next play call? Cordero freaking Patterson to the short side of the field on some type of a little trickeration. He gets knocked out of bounds, loss of a yard.
Because that's Nagy's play. He's got to be able to open up that playbook and show you how smart he is.
Correct.
I just want to point out here that this team has been built around a defense. That's the point. And the defense today allowed a 95-yard drive right down the field in the middle of the second half. 4th and 1 at the goal line, got pushed back to the end of the end zone as they waltzed in. To me, that's a huge problem.
Fundamentally, it has to start up front. And, Akeem Hicks is not the same player he was last year pre-injury. It's an arm. I don't know. A lot of times with a neck or a back, a guy won't be playing so low and violent. Well, it looks to me like OB, he's doing a lot of standing up and dancing and trying to swim and things like that. Well,
that's what happens.
And you texted me this week. You replayed the Detroit game, and Khalil Mack got his butt kicked up and down the field by a backup.
Khalil Mack last year, you could say, was basically missing in action. And I'll tell you what, so far this year, for a guy making that kind of money, I don't know, guys.
The best defense in the NFL. I want more. And I'm guessing they expect more.
Are they getting enough from Bilal Nichols and Roy Robertson Harris and Roquan and Danny? Danny Trevathan was off the field a lot today, which surprised me. I thought after talking to Danny on Friday, he was going to have the game of his life today.
I guess my biggest issue with this defense is Pagano not bringing pressure. Maybe I'm such a big fan of Vic Fangio and like the pressures he brought up, and sometimes there were 4-man pressure, but coming from one side and dropping the other side, and he was real creative with it. But it feels like the guys are, all right, you 4 go get him. I might rush Roquan, and then that's all I got. I want Khalil Mack to be great. I think he's pretty good right now, but he's getting paid, $141 million to be great. And I want to see him do what he did when he first got here, win games for the Bears. I'm talking about the closing series of plays for the Giants. Go down there and win the game. Be that guy. Make that game-winning play. You get paid to be that superstar. I want to see that.
I'm hearing people be critical of the defense. They gave up 13 points, under 300 yards, 4 sacks, forced 2 turnovers. A third one was a pick 6. I thought they got the PI call right, but it was definitely questionable in Eddie Jackson's mind, Matt Nagy's mind. The guys I work with on TV who all played, they thought it was not a PI.
I'd rather be 2-0 this morning than 0-2 with issues plaguing your football team. Across the landscape of the National Football League, there's some people waking up this morning, it's like, we're out of it. But the Bears somehow are 2-0. And I'm very encouraged this morning about how the offense looked for the better part of 2 quarters. Now, last week it was 1 quarter. This week it's 2 quarters. Maybe this upcoming Sunday will be 3 quarters. Incremental success. That's what we're seeing here with this Bears team.
Wow. A lot to unpack there, Dan.
Yeah, where do you want to begin?
Well, let's start at the top with Kozlowski saying Trubisky is the worst quarterback in football.
I also will take umbrage with that. I hate criticizing because I feel like he's going through cancer. Like, I shouldn't be calling him out, but Sylvie. Mark Silverman was taking jabs at him today because the Broncos signed Blake Bortles because their quarterback, what's his name, Drew
Lock.
Yeah, he's out and for at least 3-4 weeks, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so they signed Bortles. So Silverman said something like, "Is this going to be Mitch in 2 years? Is this going to be Mitch just signing with other teams? It's just fuck, man." And then he goes on to proclaim that, there's no way the Bears are going to re-sign him. You don't know that. Mm-hmm. And the touchdown that Mitch threw to number 11, our 5th-round draft pick, the speedster who had Ted Ginn, a healthy scratch this week, Mr. Mooney.
Mm-hmm.
That play, if that's Mahomes, we're talking, oh, my God, look at his foot. Now, granted, it wasn't a spiral, but McMahon didn't throw a lot of spirals, but it was the prettiest duck you've ever seen.
Mm.
He eluded the throws, and it's a touchdown. Again, that's a Sports Center moment you see all week long if Kansas City makes that play. So the short answer to what you were saying is, I disagree with Glenn. It is interesting to see or to think or ponder, did Pace force Nagy's hand? Now, I don't know the answer to that. I don't know anybody does, but it's certainly an argument that I'm willing to listen to Because I honestly thought heading into week 1 that they were going to play Foles. I really did. Mm-hmm. And I was shocked to see that Trubisky was going to be the starter. Now, I don't think it's fair when I feel like I'm saying the same thing every week, but you and I kind of went back a little bit during the game. You're like, come on, man, they've only given up 10 points.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like people rally to the defense and justify what the hell's going on over there with points and stats, but they will not use points or stats or anything to back up Trubisky. They say stats are for losers, except when it comes to justifying this defense. You heard Patrick Manley in that piece say that the Bears are the best defense in the league. Get the fuck out of here. I saw the stat. I wish I had it. This is, again, just impromptu, but they'd given up the most since Khalil Mack got with the Bears, which I'm not blaming Mack for this stat, mm-hmm. but the Bears defense had given up more drives over 90 yards since 2018 than any other team in the league.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like that's a damning stat. I always joke about it because of John Fox and call it the siesta. Anytime that the other team is backed up, Patrick O'Donnell has a good punt. They're like, oh man, coffin corner. They're going to start first and 10 from the 3. That's when John Elway is going to emerge and lead them all the way into the 86 championship. That's what the Bears defense would have done. Mm-hmm. Exactly like that. It doesn't matter. No Barkley. We're going to give up. They always use the cliche about pinning your ears back, which makes me roll my eyes. But when you know they can't run the ball, bring pressure, especially that deep into the field. But we always play soft and let the other team just go straight up and down the field. So to go back to Mitch, I don't know why the defense is one of those things that we can't. It's like as Bears fans, we're not allowed to criticize. We just have to carry on this myth that they're great no matter what the fucking game film shows. It's got to be number 10's fault then. Or before that, it must be Jay Cutler's fault. It must be Rex Grossman's fault. I just come in, because I feel like
here's
you see what I'm saying though. You see what I'm saying? I need you to let's play some tennis here, back and forth.
Sure.
I don't know how this is Mitch's fault when we can point out plays where his statistics would have been even better than what because of drops and other things with Anthony Miller, with the Robinson plays. He had a good game.
Mm-hmm.
Third down, he was exceptional.
And I'm totally with you. I thought Mitch did a lot of impressive things. I don't know what Glenn Kozlowski was looking at for him to make that assessment after the game that Mitchell Trubisky had. Yes, it was an uneven performance. Yes, there were some mistakes, but there were so many good things and hopeful things. And I'm not a huge Mitch Trubisky fan. I thought he was a second-round draft pick, and the fact that the Bears moved up to the second overall pick of the draft to pick him made me nauseous. But nonetheless, I have to tell it like it is, or at least the way that I see it, and I saw Mitchell Trubisky really doing some fine things. I'm going to comment on your thoughts regarding the defense after this. I want to play Matt Nagy, his response to the question, have you seen enough in Mitchell Trubisky to have confidence in him?
We definitely see enough improvement. I think that he knows that there's plenty more that can happen. There's a couple reads that he had in that game that was number one in the progression, and he didn't get to, and he knows that. We talked about it as an offense, and those are the ones that we want to eliminate because they can turn into big plays. But there's been a lot of growth with him as well in regards to his decision making. We talked last year; it was a big deal. Like, let's not make a bad play worse, number one, and let's keep that next play mentality going. Where if something bad happens on one play, let's make a good play the next. He's been doing that. We haven't had that domino effect. That, to me, is, again, another sign of growth for him.
That is the absolute best analysis that I have heard about Mitchell Trubisky in 2020. That is what I have seen. I have seen a player who is still making some mistakes with his reads, but is getting much, much better at making decisions, at using his feet, about some of the mechanics are still flawed. Dan Orlovsky said that on Twitter when he looked at the Bears film and said that his Mitchell's footwork was still off. But nonetheless, I still see some vast improvement in Mitch Trubisky. And so, again, I don't get the type of comments, the hyperbole that comes from Glenn Kozlowski. And God bless him. I wish him well with his battle against cancer, but that doesn't negate the fact that I think he's totally, totally wrong in saying such a silly thing about Trubisky. As for
the thing about Glenn's comment, maybe not to that extent, but so many other people concur with it.
Yes.
Or maybe not saying he's the worst quarterback in the league, but so many other people have already decided, like I mentioned Sylvie, that they're just done with him.
Right.
And there's nothing he can do to change their mind.
Well, and that's just silly. That I think we talked about that last week. That's kind of a bigoted approach. Are you still going to say that if the Bears are 16-0? So you have to be able to change your opinion based on new evidence. And the new evidence that I've seen this year is that in game one, Mitch had one fantastic quarter. Yes, you can't win regularly by playing one fantastic quarter and three below average at best quarters. But in week two, he had a really, really good first half. And in the second half, it wasn't all on Mitch, as Greg Braggs would say. There were some mistakes made by other players that led to that poor offensive showing in the passing game in the second half. And so I am not going to blame Mitch. To me, that his performance in week two against the Giants was one of the more encouraging games that I have seen when you look at things from a progression standpoint. And I really, really do hope. I was just talking to John Buffon about this. He says, what do you fear the most? And I said, I fear regression, because if he comes out and he throws 2-3 touchdowns and he has one of those 150-yard passing performances, then I'm going to go, well, maybe these guys are right. But my heart tells me and my brains tell me that I think he's going to come out and have another solid, steady performance, and that we're going to say, yeah, I'm seeing some more progress out of the kid.
Yeah, it's I don't mean to keep going back to Brett Favre, but early on, Green Bay was toying with the idea of benching him. Mm-hmm. And that was in like 94, and he'd already won a playoff game for them and everything. Mm-hmm. So I'm not saying that Mitch is Brett Favre, but I'll just say during the run of, let's say, Dave Wanstead's era where the Bears lost 10 straight to Green Bay. Mm-hmm. Oftentimes in the first half, the Bears would have a lead and would tease you. If you're going to be 4-12, you'd be thinking, just if we could just beat Green Bay today, that would somehow make this season seem worthwhile or whatever. You look for moral victories when you're fucking 4-11 or whatever. Mm-hmm. But my point is, during that run, Favre would often struggle for 3 quarters and then come back and beat us in the fourth quarter and just be jumping into the fucking crowd, which should have been a penalty. It would have been on any other team. You couldn't use a prop or any of that other shit. But hey, let's just jump in the stands. That's allowed.
Right. I'm with you 100% on that one. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I'm just saying that's Brett Favre. He's having fun and he's leading a comeback and blah, blah, blah. Well, so again, if Brett Favre would do that, we'd be all over his dick saying, oh, what a great fourth quarter comeback. When Mitch does it, we say, well, he sucked for 3 quarters though.
Right.
It's just like this guy gets dissected like nobody else in Chicago ever, other than maybe Rex Grossman. I honestly feel because Jay was better, that he didn't have it as rough as Mitch does. I think Grossman is right there with Trubisky. Like everything they do just gets fucking dissected relentlessly. And the second week, again, he played well, like you said. Everyone knows he played well. He was doing great on third down. But I guess your criticism could be, hypothetically, well, they didn't score any points in the second half. Mm-hmm. Well, for one, they let a drive at the end of the game. We can never find a kicker that can make a fucking 50-yard field goal. And the other team's fucking kicker can hit. Like Matt Prater missed the one against us in week 1. If that was at Soldier Field, he wouldn't have missed. He's made 58 and 59-yarders repeatedly as the Lions kicker at Soldier Field. But we can't find a kicker that can go for 48 consistently at Soldier Field. Now, I mean, I know everyone's going to say, well, you shouldn't have got rid of Robbie. We could talk about that again. Robbie was struggling when the Bears got rid of him. Plus, he had a big contract and a big mouth.
Yep.
So I understand why they got rid of him. I'm not, in retrospect, it was a bad move.
Right.
But I'm kind of going all over the place. I'm saying that Trubisky there always is a reason for them to say he didn't do this well or didn't do that well. Even if it's a fourth quarter comeback, well, you played poorly the first 3 quarters, so that negates that. Mm-hmm. That repudiates that. And then this week, well, you played good early on, but you didn't finish strong. Well, maybe he finishes strong if Anthony Miller makes those catches. Maybe he finishes strong if the defense, what if when they have him penned back there, they force a 3 and out, and then you get great field position.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's just a couple of things that could have happened. I mean, it takes the whole team.
It does.
But he gets blamed for everything.
He does, but that comes with the job, and really that happens in 32 cities in the NFL. The quarterback is just so, gets all of the credit, and
I don't think he gets credit. I really don't. I think he gets all the blame and the overwhelming lion's share of the blame. And not any credit when they win.
I agree with that, and circumstances are that the guy was booed at a Chicago Bulls game even before he took a snap. He unfortunately wears that brand that he was a poor draft pick by Ryan Pace even before he took a snap in the NFL because they traded up a pick to grab a guy who. People said he would have been there in the 3rd pick. Why are you doing that? And then after the play of Mahomes and his rookie season and Watson and his rookie season, then it got really bad for Mitchell Trubisky. And so that's an albatross or whatever the appropriate phrase is. That's one he's going to have to deal with for a long time. And so that's why he has to be tough about it and he has to overlook that. But another point, and you said this just a minute ago, you talked about the responsibility of the team and the other players. And there have been lots of mistakes done by receivers and running routes in a pass blocking offensive line that has had issues for the last 2 seasons when he's played, really mostly last season, that really retarded his growth. And there has been the issue of Matt Nagy not respecting the run and what it can do for a quarterback. And I think part of the reason that I'm encouraged about Mitchell Trubisky's potential progression this season is the fact that they're running the ball and that there is an allegiance to running the ball. Mitchell was asked about that today. His response.
Sometimes the windows are just bigger, or when you drop back the pass and you see a bunch of defenders get deep really quickly and they're not respecting the underneath routes. So I think it either makes them bail out and more of the underneath stuff is more open, or if it's a different type of drop back, then the windows are a little bigger and they're having to cover more of the field just because maybe they're in a little bit more of a panic because they respect the run game or they lose track of their assignment for whatever reason. It's just nice to keep the defense off balance. And I think when you have a steady run game and the way that our O-line is doing a great job controlling the line of scrimmage, it just it gives more stability to this offense, I feel like.
That's huge, Dan. As you know, that's huge for his development. He has to have a running attack that he can rely on. But most importantly, you don't get that if you don't have a head coach who can rely on the offense and have the courage to stick with the rushing game despite, a negative yardage gain on a particular play. And I think what we're seeing from Matt Nagy is an evolution in his coaching style is that he's being a bit more responsible about sticking to the run game.
I think statistically, I'm sure there's another game we could pull up and say, well, he had 130, 120 yards, whatever. I'm sure there's better games, but maybe it was because he overcame the neck and what appeared to be, at the very least, I was like, oh, man, he's going to be concussed or he's going to miss the rest of the game. I thought Sunday just from the eye test, I thought that was David Montgomery's best game as a Bear.
He won. In my opinion, he won the game in that.
Yes.
In that that drive when he was given the ball repeatedly and he changed the complexion of the game, he changed the momentum of the game. He won the game with those rushes.
And let's not forget that he caught the pass in the flat in the first quarter on the first drive and took it all the way to the house. And that was. That was all him.
Yeah, and excuse me for interrupting. And we have to give credit to Mitchell Trubisky because on that touchdown pass and the one to Darnell Mooney, those were both improvised plays that broke down. In fact, I got a soundbite from Coach Nagy talking about that I'll find and play. But those were plays that were, the play broke down and Mitch did the right thing. Let's listen to Matt Nagy as I cue this one up. Here it is right here.
I think those are sometimes little things that people can take for granted. We called a screen right there, and the details of the screen were pretty good.
Fuck, that's the wrong one. Hold on. Here it is. This is Matt Nagy talking about Mitchell ad-libbing on both of the touchdown passes.
It's not easy to be able to have and predict an exact defense of what you think the defense is going to play every play. And so there's a lot of non-scripted, off-script type plays that you look for. And those were two examples that you just said. Two of his touchdowns were that, being a third down on the first one where they want to go ahead, and you're starting to see teams that are spying him right now as a runner. And so what happens is that takes one element out of the rush, which means you have more time as a drop back player. But now you got to now counter that by using your legs and make them make a move, which is what happened. He floated the ball over top to David, and David did the rest, and we had great blocking. The second touchdown pass was, again, they're kind of protecting the goal line. They know that, it's the end of the half. So same type of deal. It was a 3.5 man rush where they kind of rushed a fourth guy late. You could see Mitch, instead of flushing out of the pocket in a panic move and just running out of bounds, he extended the play. And then he pointed to Mooney to strike out of there, and then he gave him a chance. You see those a lot across the league, and it's nice to see. I think that's growth by him and having that happen.
So not to bury your point that Montgomery, that this was his best game, and I agree with you, it was. That also was huge in that Mitchell is now improvising on certain plays and getting really good positive results. That is super encouraging.
I absolutely agree with you. And it's good to hear Nagy. I know he's been accused of in the past, and again, perhaps rightfully so, of coddling Mitch. But this entire campaign, since whatever you want to consider it, the COVID camp, or it's not traditional training camp or preseason, but during this entire who's going to be the quarterback, he was very reticent when it came to praising Trubisky. So I think that this was pretty. I mean, if you're Trubisky, you're thinking, my God, finally he's impressed. I finally made this guy publicly say that I've done something well. So I think that, again, that's progress because Nagy has been sort of, what's the word I'm looking for? He's just been a little bit aloof when it came to anything to do with Trubisky in terms of, so I think that all in all, of course, you could point to things and say, well, like they were saying in the piece, the montage I created, well, why didn't they have the tight ends more involved? I mean, you could dissect everything and find that there's room to improve across the board. And again, yes, I agree. But here we sit 2-0.
Here we sit 2-0. Here we sit with a offense that we can see has a lot more room for growth. Here we see a defense. Now let's get to this because there were some really strong comments about the defense made on that montage that you put together. And as you alluded to during the game, you sent me a text and you said something angry about the defense. And I'm like, yeah, but Dan, every defense gives up points. Look at the score. Look at what. It's critical
times, though.
Yeah, I agree. No, I agree. I agree that sometimes they're giving up drives, at critical times. But it's anytime you give up a 95-yard drive is a critical time.
Yeah, but it's every game and the clutch. So I go back to that Raiders game, the Eagles playoff game, the Detroit game in week 1. Whenever they need to get a stop for whatever reason, they can't get it. And that's when Vic was there. That's when Pagano's there. It's easy, and I was taking the low-hanging fruit and saying, well, man, maybe Chuck's got to go, or he just doesn't call enough pressure.
Yes, but they got the stop Sunday against the Giants in the fourth quarter. They got the stop. They did get the stop. They gave up that 95-yard drive, and they gave up a field goal. I think I think we can be a little too harsh on this defense.
We got lucky. I'm pretty sure that was just their third down play anyway, but they ran out of time. And I'll take it. I'm happy. And I thought it was a great play by Eddie Jackson to when screen, I think, was initially the one on Golden Tate, who got pushed down, which is what drew the penalty. And Golden Tate, for years, has been getting away with that shit going back to his Lions tenure. And, of course, he beat us in the playoff game with Philly. So he's been a Bears killer forever. He's been like a rash on our fucking balls or something that we couldn't get rid of. Not that I have any of those, thankfully. But I'm just saying he's always been a nuisance. And when screen went down, Eddie made a tremendous reaction on the ball, and I didn't think that it should have been a penalty, even though Golden Tate was whining. But I'm just saying, had the Giants had more time, it felt like we couldn't stop them. I mean, they had multiple fourth downs, and I don't know what it was. I didn't go back and break things to extrapolate the tape and all these things, but from just when it was live, it felt like I think Trevathan was out and Deion Bush was in, and whoever Bush or Roquan was on was wide open on every fourth down play. Oh, it's Deion Lewis. It's Slayton. Boom, boom. Fourth down play, they would go inside, and the Bears couldn't stop it.
Yeah.
And they never can stop it. When both games, again, I'm not going to say we're lucky because if the Bears were 0-2 right now, somebody on ESPN, Mark Silverman, would be saying, well, like Bill Parcells says, you are what you are. You are 0-2. You are 0-2. So when you're 2-0, why can't we be 2-0 like what Parcells says?
Well, I think that this week against the Atlanta Falcons, it's going to be the true measuring stick of where this defense is. We're finally facing a offense that you can't say, well, look at who they were playing. No, this is an offense that can score points. And if Julio Jones plays right now, it's kind of iffy whether he plays. But if he's in there along with Calvin Ridley, those are two dynamite wide receivers. Matt Ryan threw 4 touchdown passes last week. This team can play. They can put points up on the board. There may not be any fans in the stands at the Dome in Atlanta, but nonetheless, it's a home game for them. They're familiar with the environment and so forth. So this is going to be a huge test.
I thought they were allowing a certain percentage of fans in whatever the Georgia Dome is called down there now.
Okay, they may be. I had not heard that, but nonetheless, it won't be the 60, 70,000 crying, loud super fans. So, in fact, Nagy was asked, do you think this is a kind of an advantage that, for instance, in Detroit, there weren't any fans? And he goes, yeah, it's definitely an advantage for our offense that that the players can hear Mitch's cadence, what they've heard in our practices and so forth. So that's worked out in our favor. And however many fans there might be at the Atlanta stadium, it's still not going to be an issue. And so I just think that this defense is really going to be tested this week. It's a possibility. I mean, when I look at this Falcons offense, I think they can score 3 touchdowns on the Bears, 4 touchdowns even. And
I will say this, though, if we can rewind to week 2 for the Falcons.
Okay.
I kept thinking about, and I went to bed because I'm nocturnal because of my jobs. And to have to get up for what for me is a 1 p.m. kickoff. I know for most people listening, it would be a noon kickoff. But after that game's over, I fucking beat. I had 3 hours of sleep or whatever. So I went to sleep and then got up probably around 7 or 8 Eastern time and saw what all I had missed in the late games. So I didn't watch the Atlanta-Dallas game as it was happening. But I went back and was watching it. It made me think these fucking bastards deserve this, because in 2008, in Matt Ryan's rookie year, Lovey gave away a game almost the same way. The Bears had scored. Kyle Orton threw a touchdown to Rasheed Davis with like 12 seconds to go.
Yes.
And then he did the fucking little shitty kick. It wasn't an onside kick the way Dallas had to do it, but the squib kick.
Right.
And we just gave away a game we had no business in losing, and Jason Elam kicked the field goal. The Bears lost. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, that'd be a great way to bookend Ryan's career. If not to say he's going to be gone after 2020, but your first year as a league, you steal that one, and then this one comes back almost the same way, where you had no business in losing. You're up 9, the touchdown, then that onside kick, and then okay, so they're 0-2, and if you listen to the radio at all, some people are saying that Dan Quinn could be fired if this garbage Bears team, who's 2-0, would beat them Sunday. So we're talking about a team that's coming off a devastating loss and possibly fighting for their coach's livelihood. So the Bears have to bring it.
I'm with you.
I don't think Atlanta's going to be flat. But I think the perception that it's a tougher game, that matters.
It definitely does matter. And one of the huge disappointments from the Week 2 game is that we've got a 17-0 lead at the half. And on our Bear football show, we do a little halftime tease for the after game show. And I said, what we want to see here is this team come out strong in the second half and just put their effing boot on that play on this other team's head and crush it, and that's not what happened. The defense came out and did their job. The Giants.
I won't go that far.
Well, but the Giants came out to start the second half. They had the ball and they were out 3-and-out. Then Mitchell Trubisky throws an interception. Not his fault, but in a 2-play drive, they throw the interception, and now all of a sudden the Giants have field position and the momentum starts to change.
Yeah, but they didn't have field position when it was 17-3, and they were backed up to like their own 2 or 3 yard line.
That is true.
It was the Bears defense that, if it were a game of risk on the old board game, they lost. They gave up all their territory on that particular drive.
And I know that stinks, and that's not, you don't
but
want
they do it all the time.
Yeah, you don't want to have the second worst record in the NFL at giving up 90-plus yard drives. But that was really, to me, the only blemish on this overall team defense. And now we can talk about Hicks and some of the other players maybe not playing up to their capabilities. But from an overall team defensive standpoint, that was the only blemish in that game.
Okay, before I address that, my initial point from like 2 minutes ago, I was going to say that maybe it's human nature, I don't know, to be somewhat complacent if you think that your opponent is inferior. Whether that's fair or not, maybe the Bears would think that this Atlanta game is tougher, and as a result will bring their proverbial A game versus the Giants. They don't even have Barkley. They're down 17. We got this. Maybe there's a little bit of that we got this mentality. We've already had 4 sacks or whatever. We got this. It's in the maybe they took them lightly. And I'm not saying that that's good. I'm not even saying that's what happened. It's just a theory of saying that there's a possibility they kind of just thought the game was won.
Yeah, I got to say this. Let me just interject this real quickly. The whole Saquon Barkley, is God thing. No, he's not. Look at the stats in week 1 against the Steelers. Barkley was awful. The running game, Daniel Jones, the quarterback, had more rushing yards than all of the other running backs put together, Barkley and his backups. So it's not like the loss of Saquon Barkley in this game, him leaving the game early in the second quarter, was devastating for this team. The guy has not played that well. There were stories in the New York media about, should we trade Saquon Barkley? He's not worth, the investment in him and so forth. So
He's a dynamic player.
He is. He is, but it's not like he's the second coming of Jesus, for God's sake.
No, but he's definitely their best offensive asset.
Yeah.
At least at this point of his career. Maybe Daniel Jones becomes a Hall of Fame quarterback. I don't know.
Slayton is playing like the best offensive asset so far this season.
He's out for the year now too, right?
Well, yeah, that's right. That's right. Too bad we don't have him again on the schedule.
Well, I'm just saying, maybe I still think they would have been, on paper, they'd have been more dangerous if they've got 26 in their backfield during those drives. And without him, the Bears should have been. But it was Deion Lewis catching those passes on fourth down. I mean, again, he's won Super Bowls with the Patriots and stuff, so it's not like he's a slouch. But the Bears should have been able to, at least on that last drive, even if you give up the siesta, and you have on the last drive, man, just win the fucking game. Can we get a Khalil Mack sack to end the game, or just a batted ball, something without it going to the goal line? But whatever, man.
All right. I want to address these comments made by Ed O'Bradovich and other people.
He was fired up.
Oh my gosh, Ed OB. He was a guest on the Mike North show. I just loved hearing his take on stuff. And you talk about.
By the way, I hope Mike North does a Gale Sayers podcast. I hope.
Well, on this morning, Mike and I recorded a podcast, and we devoted the first 15 minutes of the show to Gale Sayers. So those of you,
Mike told me on Twitter, about a month ago, that he thought if he had to choose Gale or Peyton, he would have taken Sayers. Well, I swear he said that. He said that he thought Sayers was the better back overall. I don't want to misquote Mike North, but I would love to hear some of his thought. I'm definitely going to listen to you all's podcast. Not that I wouldn't anyway.
Right.
But I'll definitely be listening to the Mike North events for the Sayers stories. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, and let's do this. Let's bring you and Mike on for a future show, because I think it would be fun for you guys to compare notes on players. You as our Bears historian here at the Barroom Network, and Mike with his, he started following the team, I think, in 1962. So it'd be fun for you guys to talk. And I'd love to be a part of that conversation, too.
Well, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it as well. I mean, you got to see Sayers. So.
Yes, I did get to see Sayers. So let's save Sayers talk for the end of the show.
Sure.
But what I want to get across is these complaints about Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks and so forth, a lot of them are legitimate complaints. These guys are not delivering the results.
But Hicks does have 2 sacks. We shouldn't just gloss over that.
He definitely does. But my point is that I think these guys are being too tough on these players. And I think sometimes you might be a little bit too tough on Khalil Mack, although I think you are also right in that we want to see more big plays from Khalil Mack. But here is what is happening, is that opposing teams are game planning against the Khalil Macks and Akeem Hicks. They know they got to get rid of the ball quickly so that by the time these guys are in the backfield and anywhere in the vicinity of the quarterback, that ball is gone. That ball is gone. And the few times that it's not is when there is then a disruption of the play, either by, getting into the quarterback's face or pressuring him, or he makes a back throw or whatever. But my point is this. The game of football has changed. We no longer are seeing quarterbacks take 5, 7, 9-step drops and holding on to the ball for 4 or 5 seconds. No, it's about getting rid of the ball quickly and nullifying the outside pass rush. So my complaint with Chuck Pagano is, why aren't we lining up at least a half dozen plays, Khalil Mack in the middle? That way he's got a straight line to the quarterback. That way the quarterback is always wondering, well, where is he, on the right? Is he on the left? Is he in the middle now? Where the hell is Mack? And being a little bit more creative, I think that part of the issue with this Chicago Bears defense and the lack of superstar individual performances has to do with the team coaching. There was one play in the fourth quarter where I saw Khalil Mack covering a running back out of the backfield 20 yards downfield. I'm like, what the fuck is this? What are you doing? This guy should be rushing the quarterback. And if he's got a bad knee to begin with, I don't want him running all over the field.
And ironically, Pagano made a facetious remark about when he was coming here that against Vic Fangio.
I remember that.
Yeah, saying that when under his system, Mac was going to be there to sack the quarterback.
Right. How come these guys don't live up to their word?
The 7-step drops is true. I mean, this isn't Al David. This isn't Jim Plunkett or Kenny Stabler's league anymore.
Right.
However, it wasn't in 2018 either. And Khalil Mack was making plays where you said, holy shit, this is the guy we traded for. This is the reason he's got that contract. Now, maybe he is hurt, and maybe we should, myself included, should give him more praise for not missing games and for being out there. And maybe he was hurt last year.
Yeah,
I don't know, because the Bears haven't really conveyed that to us.
Well, and yeah,
of course,
you
they
wish,
lie, but still, he's not making the plays that he did in 2018.
I'm with you.
And dare I say, if this Khalil Mack, the 2019 or 2020 version that we've seen thus far, if that was the guy that was at the end of his run in Oakland, we wouldn't have traded for him. Not for 2 first-round picks.
Absolutely. I'm with you 100%. Now, let me ask you this question. When Robert Quinn, on his very first play as a Chicago Bear,
that was beautiful, huh?
strips the ball loose. What did you think? Was your mind filled with thoughts of, wow, Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn, this is going to be great for the next 15 games?
I text you immediately, actually, because the Bears Barroom had a poll on Twitter who would get the first sack today.
That's right.
And I chose Quinn, and I texted you immediately. I picked Quinn in your fucking poll. I was just happy to see him. And I did see him, and I was like, ooh, it's kind of like when I saw Mike Glennon wearing number 8. I was like, oh, maybe no quarterback should wear 8 because Rex was so scrutinized. Cade McNown was 8. It just looks like to give that to the punter.
Right.
And then when I saw Quinn wearing Leonard Floyd's number, 94, I was like, can somebody just give him a different number?
Please. Put a 0.5, 94.5. Whatever.
There's got to be another number available. I know the Bears have so many retired, but still, that's what I thought too. But I was like, hey, man, great play, great play. And Mack was the guy that had the recovery, right?
Yes, Mack recovered the football, indeed. So
maybe is Quinn not playing as much because he's getting brought back, because he wasn't really on the field that much.
Yeah, let me I actually have it open here. Snap counts. Let's see how many our guy Quinn was on. I'm scrolling down. Quinn. Okay. Yeah, he was on the field for only 38% of the defense's snap counts. And so that clearly is because he's not in game shape. He is not 100% healthy, and he was only on the field. He was on the field for less than 30 of the overall 68 defensive snaps. So
he had a big shot on Daniel Jones at the end of that last drive. He barely missed him by like a pubic hair. Almost had a sack, but he knocked him to the ground. I don't know if you know the play I'm talking about on the last drive. Yeah, he had a big hit on Jones.
Yes. So my point is, all right, let's get this guy in game shape. Let's get him healthy and so forth, and hopefully Khalil Mack can get to 100% healthy or as close as a veteran can under all of these circumstances. And all of a sudden, I think, and Akeem Hicks, who is clearly not in 100% shape. You know, Khalil needs to lose a little bit of weight and so forth and get back.
Well, that's something Dan Hampton said.
Yeah,
he thought, and he didn't say it like, like I'm being an asshole. He just said, I don't know if the guys are in football shape yet.
They're not.
He said, I think the defense is out of shape right now.
Yep. They are not, and I think that's the same case with almost every other team, if not every other team. But this defense is going to get better. As long as these guys can stay healthy, and so far, oh my gosh, this rash of injuries in the NFL has hit every team in the NFL except the Chicago Bears.
Oh, don't say that.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. Can I edit that out? But
speaking of injuries, real quickly, if you don't mind me saying, and going into week 4, we could activate Eddie Pinheiro.
Well, what do you think? Should we?
Oh man, did you honestly think when Santos came out he was going to make it?
No.
My exact quote to the lady I was watching the game with, I said, I can't fucking watch. I just can't watch. I turned my head, and then I turned it back right when I was like, oh, it's kind of hooking back, though. And I was like, oh, he fucking still missed it.
Yeah.
I had no faith in Santos whatsoever. But what is your question again? I keep interrupting. I'm sorry.
No, it's all right. I forgot what my question was. I'm having such a good time.
We're talking about the injuries. We're talking about the defense is going to improve potentially week to week.
Yeah. So what do you think? Do you think that this team has the capability of getting better week to week to week as long as they stay injury free? And not go through the rash of injuries like almost every other team in the NFL? I think they can. What do you think?
Well, right now, if we just break it down, I think the corners are playing excellent.
My goodness, yes.
And I haven't heard much from the Gibson guy, so that must mean that he's not making any mistakes back there.
Exactly. That's typically the case, yeah.
Yeah, and Jackson is, of course, his pick six was called back. He later said that the ref told him my bad on the call,
right?
Which he's going to get fined for, but I'm glad he said it anyway, and he can afford it.
Absolutely.
So anyway, the secondary is playing better than I even thought that they could 2 weeks in. Mm-hmm. I'm still concerned. I don't know the guy wearing Singletary's number. You said his name for me last week. I haven't figured out who he is yet. He's playing more of the snaps now, as we talked about for Quinn. Trevathan has been coming out a lot for Deion Bush. Mm-hmm. I don't know what's up with Danny Trevathan. I don't know if it's a conditioning thing. I don't know if it's, he's 30, he's 31, and he's hit the wall. I don't know. And we just signed that big guy from the Steelers.
Right. Somebody to help at the nose tackle position.
Yeah, so maybe that's what they need. Well, last week I was advocating for Snacks Harrison. Maybe they feel like this guy, will take a smaller deal. And he's at 6'7". He's a huge guy. Mm-hmm. I tweeted my friend who's a Steeler fan, and he said he got beaten out by a 7th-round pick. So I don't know how good that bodes for him. But, again, if he could bring that guy in and they could get some pressure up front at all, not just with the run game. I mean, it just seems like we're getting no pressure on Matthew Stafford or Daniel Jones. Now, I know they had a couple sacks. Hicks has got 2, and we mentioned Quinn's. But most of the game, when it mattered on those long drives, he could have had 7-step drops. We were nowhere near him most of the time. So I hope. I guess my hope is there that they're going to be better than what they have performed thus far. My head says that they will be, but I don't know. Like, maybe this is just who the Bears are now defensively. I heard Ian Eagle. For some reason, his name's spelled Ian, but it's Ian. He's like probably the only guy in America that actually says tomato instead of tomato.
Well, that's why
Ian. I'm Ian Eagle. Ian Eagle said that the Bears statistically had the oldest defense in the league, and that felt like a kick in the balls when he said it. Ooh, that's where we were when Phil Emery was there. But maybe that's just because they signed Quinn and Trevathan got re-signed and Kwiatkowski's gone and. I don't know what to expect. I feel like the offense, despite what everybody else is saying, I feel like the offense is kind of looking up because the Bears do have a running game that they haven't had and during Nagy's run at all. He seems to be willing to stick with it. Again, we're 2 games in, but it looks like they can run the ball. The offensive line has been superior compared to last year.
Oh, my goodness. Juan Castillo, let's give him the city's Medal of Honor or whatever we give. Because this guy has clearly the scheme of the blocking is much better. Clearly he's getting better performances from all of the guys who were underwhelming us last season, and that includes the 2 tackles, Leno and Bobby Massey. So I'm incredible.
Big 4th down catch by Massey.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that, I'm sure Castillo deserves credit for that too. Maybe Mike Furry does. I don't know. But I want to get back just to the point regarding the defense, and you mentioned Danny Trevathan. Here's the interesting thing about Trevathan. Last year, and I don't have the stat in front of me, but it seemed like every down that Roquan Smith was out there, Danny Trevathan was out there. These guys were, when they were both playing together and not, injured or did not play because of some weird thing that happened off the field, whatever it was. But those guys, as the inside linebackers, were, no matter the down and distance, they were always on the field together. Well, that's not happening anymore. And that's not happening because Danny Trevathan looks like he's either lost a step or he's out of shape or something is going on. Danny Trevathan played less than 50% of the snaps in week 2, and Roquan Smith played 100% of the snaps. And in fact, Deion Bush has taken over those snaps from Danny Trevathan and is playing a lot more. And not only Danny Trevathan, but one of the other inside linebackers took some of those snaps as well. But we're seeing a shift in schemes, and we're keeping Danny off the field. And whether that is because they have noticed that he has regressed physically, or which is my hope, that he has it's taking him a little time to get into shape because whatever happened during the off season, he wasn't able to work out as much as he should have.
Because he was hurt. He missed like the second half of the entire season last year. We should have mentioned that.
That is right, but the word is that he was healthy throughout camp and that he had a good camp and so forth. So I'm a little concerned as to why we're seeing that, and if that is true, that he was healthy throughout camp, and he's playing the way that he's playing now, then that's a cause for concern.
Then how much money is it going to hurt to release him at the end of the year? That's the question.
Right. And how can we disguise the fact that a guy that we were relying so much on our defense, how can we disguise that with the Deion Bush and maybe Joel?
Bush had a pick, right?
He did have a pick, indeed.
Yeah.
And can a guy like Joel Iyiegbuniwe come in and take some snaps and play effectively? So that's a huge part of my concern with the defense. But overall, I think that there is signs that this defense is going to get better and better. But this Game 3 against the Atlanta Falcons is going to be a huge test. I took a look at the stats very quickly. These Falcons, they rank second in the NFL in passing yards, 362 yards per game, and fourth in total yards per game. Now, their rushing attack is 28th, so it's really, really poor. But because of this incredible passing attack with Matt Ryan and those receivers, they are ranked fourth in total yards, 454. And I think also that has to do with the fact that they just found themselves in shootouts, and so that amplifies these stats to a degree. But man, this is a test, and the secondary, which I think so far after 2 games has been the strength of the defense, is really going to be in for a test, particularly if Julio Jones plays.
Yeah, but again, I don't want to pump out my chest too much. It just seems like the secondary is the strength of that defense right now.
Yep. Indeed.
So maybe the Bears will be up for that task. I mean, I know Fuller is tackling like he's a fucking. They keep saying Blake Martinez is a tackling machine. I've heard that during both of the Giants broadcasts on Monday Night Football and on CBS this week, and I'm like, God, was he really that good in Green Bay? I mean, no, he was okay. He was a guy, I thought, but all right. But no, Kyle Fuller has just been tremendous, not just in coverage, but just his tackling. If you recall the play before Saquon hurt his knee, Fuller had a great tackle and he got hurt on that play too. He hurt his elbow.
That's right. He fell in an awkward way, and I think the official report was that he had a wrist injury. I thought it was a shoulder, that he jammed the shoulder. I actually put the replay up on Twitter, and then the following play or 2 plays later, that's when he suffered the ACL injury that has stopped his season. Here's another interesting thing about the Falcons and what they offer in terms of a challenge to these Chicago Bears. And I'm switching subjects here. I apologize. But on their defense is incredibly talented athletically. And if injuries don't stop some of their star players from playing, that's going to be a huge challenge for this Chicago Bears offense, because I'm going to play a soundbite of Matt Nagy asking what is the strength of this of this Falcons defense, and this is what he said.
Fast, and really fast. They fly around. I mean, they get after you. It's very evident on tape. That front line that they have, those linebackers, they go quick. So on that turf, they're even faster. So we got to respect that and understand that. And that's the number one thing, though, in regards to their defense that we feel and that we see.
I think that is a great test for this offense because they have not faced a defense with the athleticism that this Falcons defense has. They have proven that they can out-muscle people because this offensive line, particularly with the addition now of Jermaine Ifedi, they've got some what's the term, road graders, ground roaders, whatever. They can dominate the offensive line, but sometimes you can get outclassed. You can have bigger and stronger guys blocking up front, but you can get outclassed because speed usually wins in almost any sport, and so that's going to be a huge test for Mitch Trubisky in this offense. We've got to figure out a way to outsmart them and beat their strength, which is, as Matt Nagy just said, fast.
I think the Bears just have to stick with it because Atlanta has shown an absolute propensity to blow not just the Dallas game, not just the Super Bowl, but they blow leads. And if you're on the road and things don't go well early on, Mitch just has to stick with it the way he did in Detroit. And I don't want to sound like too much of to use Mike North's term, a Bears ball washer here, but I feel fairly confident that everything you're saying about the Falcons is like, yeah, but I think the Bears are going to handle it. I think the Bears are going to win. I honestly do. Again, maybe it's blind optimism. Maybe it's what I want, and I do fear Julio. I do. Jones is an absolute tremendous receiver, definitely in the top 5 of the league, and has been for years. I think Ryan's definitely an above-average quarterback. I don't know if he's great, but he's definitely very good.
Absolutely.
They can score points, but I think the Bears will find a way. You could say by hook or crook or whatever. I think the Bears will find another way to take this game.
Now,
I think they're close to having their coach fired.
I was just going to say that. And I'm going to ask you for your opinion on the fact that there are rumors that if the Bears outclass the Falcons this Sunday, that Dan Quinn could be fired on Monday. In fact, Aaron Freeman, who is the host of the Locked On Falcons podcast, said that on the Buffon 55 show that is released now on your podcast stream. He said, that Quinn's job is on the line here if the Bears go out and blow this team away. Do you think that kind of works in favor of the Bears? Because this team could be – but a lot of times players will go out and play one for the Gipper. You know what I'm saying?
No, I agree. But Atlanta was like 1-7 or 1-6 or something to start the season last year. It's kind of like what we've been saying about Trubisky, if you'll – grant me that to make the comparison. When the narrative is written, it's hard to overcome it. Yeah. And somewhere along the lines of 2018, when the Bears were things were going well. Somewhat, I can't remember who it was. It was a national guy, maybe Michael Lombardi. Somebody said, I went to Chicago this week and I saw a bunch of Trubisky jerseys, and that guy, he's not even going to be on the team in 2 years.
I think it was Lombardi.
It sounded crazy at the time. Like, what? You fucking hater? You're just saying that because you were at the Browns or whatever.
Right.
But that started, like maybe that didn't start it, but perception already was out on Trubisky that he was a bust for whatever reason. And it's so hard to overcome that narrative. And it seems like Dan Quinn's eulogy is in place. I'm not saying he's going to be fired this Sunday, but it seems pretty fucking inevitable that he will not be the coach in 2021. Well, so it's hard to go against that tide is what I'm saying. That it's coming against them. And I feel like that this week we exploit that. Football is weird, man. It's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of studying. There's a lot of book work, as you know. And if Phil were here, he could go on to talk about the film and all that stuff would be so true right now. But every week it comes down, well, not every week, but a lot of times it comes down to momentum and emotions and things like that. And I feel like that's just if they get down or if the Bears come back when the Falcons are up, that's in everybody's head. Everybody knows. The players know. The fucking broadcasters are going to know. The beat writers know. The people watching TV know. Everybody knows this team is on its way down. And so why not for the Bears to come out and take that narrative and shove it up their ass and get to 3-0?
I'm going to go to bed tonight. I'm going to pray to our Lord and Savior and ask him, please, God, please have the Bears kill this team when they're down and out, because really that is what I most want to see. I want to see this killer instinct. And please, I'm not literally kill anybody, but in the sports analogies, they have to take advantage of a team that is struggling with self-confidence. Arthur Blank, the owner of the Falcons, publicly disagrees with Dan Quinn about that onside kick. He says, so there is turmoil there. There is plenty of turmoil there. And so you've got to use that as an advantage. You've got to tell your team, you've got to come out strong. And whether we're
get some turnovers this week,
please.
I could see Matt Ryan throwing for 330 yards, 2 touchdowns, but 3 picks.
Mm-hmm.
You just need to create doubt in their head, and I think Ryan will throw the ball up for us. It's up to our secondary to prove that they're the strongest unit right now on our D, and I think they can, and they think they will.
What do you think of this, Dan? I got a devious plan. What do you think? Okay, let's say we win the coin toss and we're going to kick off to the Falcons. You do an onside kick. What do you think of that?
No.
Why?
They're not going to fall for that 2 weeks in a row. It's not going to happen.
It's
and
a
you're
total
give
surprise.
Up enormous field position, and they're going to capitalize and be up 7-0
Oh, man. I thought
I don't think so. But maybe I'm just being too conservative. I don't know. Well, let me ask you this then. Let's say the Bears, I don't know, just win the toss.
Okay.
Everybody defers now.
Uh-huh.
But forget who wins or how we get it. Do you want to start the game with the D or the offense?
I think the analytics say you always trot your defense out there first, because you want to try to then have possession of the ball towards the end of the first half. You score at least 3, and then you come out in the second half with the opposing team kicking off to you, so you can potentially have 2 consecutive scores. So it took me a while to appreciate that, because I love to send the offense out there and do a statement drive. But no, the analytics are correct. You kick off.
Let me rephrase the question.
Okay.
Take the analytics and the second half part of it out.
And shove them up your ass, Aldo.
No. Everything you're saying is right, and it goes back to the Giants did that to Buffalo in the Super Bowl, scoring late and then scoring in the first possession of the third quarter. That's kind of where that was born from in Super Bowl 25, and there's a lot of validity to it. But I'm just saying, if you take that out just for a minute, let me rephrase my question.
Okay.
Which unit do you have more confidence in? And again, we're just talking about positive. Maybe positive being that defense comes out, gets a 3 and out, or at the very least forces a quick punt, maybe gives up 1 first down, gets a punt. Or conversely, we get the ball, whether Cordero has a big kickoff return or whatever. We end up moving down the field, maybe getting 3, getting 7. What do you think is the best for the Bears to get up on Atlanta, whether that be with some momentum in terms of getting great field position because the D stopped them? What is most likely to happen? The D comes out and holds Atlanta, gets the ball, gets great field position, or Mitch and the boys get the ball and they go out and score? What's most likely to happen? Dan,
I got to tell you, this is so weird because I just finished doing the Buffon 55 show, and in the third segment, the final segment of that show, I come out to join Alyssa Barbieri and John Buffon to talk a little football with them, and he asked me the question, if at the end of the game, what would you be more comfortable with? Mitch Trubisky in the offense trying to score to win the game, or the defense out on the field to try to stop the opposing team offense from winning the game. So it's interesting that you're asking the question from the opposite angle to start the game, and they asked the question to end the game. Oh my gosh.
What was your answer?
I said, right now I am so afraid of the defense that I would say, and Mitch has had fourth quarter success, that I would want the offense out there to try to win the game. Isn't that weird? I feel like I've been hypocritical now saying that.
Well, that's the way I feel too. And it's like I've said earlier, we kind of didn't advance the thought. It just feels like as Bear fans, we make excuses for the defense and ignore troubling signs. Like in that clip, Patrick Manley said we're the best defense in the league. I don't know why Bears fans think that kind of shit, because we're not.
No, we're not.
We're not. I know you could say, oh, well, they haven't given up the points. And come on, man, if stats don't matter on offense, then you can't rest everything on that either and ignore everything that's been going on.
Right.
But as Bear fans, we always do that. We fucking placate ourselves with, we think it's 1985 or something, you know?
It's true. But what defense is the best defense in the NFL?
Best defense in the NFL.
While you think of it, I'm going to say this. Nobody knows. It's too early to even consider that, in my opinion. There's just not enough body of evidence to say this is definitely the best defense. You can say this is a really good defense. This is one of the best defense. For anybody to make the proclamation that this is the best offense or defense or whatever, I think it's just way too early. You can't do that. You shouldn't do that after just 2 games. But nonetheless, I'll ask you.
I guess last season, I don't know about this season. I agree with you. Last season, I guess it was San Francisco, but they blew it in the Super Bowl, 10-point lead.
They sure did.
With about 5 minutes to go, and they blew that. And they've had some injuries now. A couple of people went out this past week, including Bosa, who was out for the year. So I don't know. I don't really have the answer to your question. And I confess to the fact that I pretty much am zeroed in on the Bears. So you don't often, until the season gets going, to where the other games start to matter more, I kind of just focus in on the Bear game.
Right. I'm with you on that. I'm the same way. And who was it that you just said? Patrick Manley. I bet you he hasn't seen any of the other games in order for him to make the proclamation that the Bears have the best defense. He hasn't seen it.
Can I ask you about Patrick Manley, too?
Sure.
Why is it? I don't want to shit on Patrick Manley, but I'm just saying. People always say things like, the kicker, fuck the punter, they're not real players.
Right.
I mean, isn't the kicker more of a player than the guy that just snaps on the field goal?
Yes, absolutely.
I mean, that's all he does is snap on the field goal or the punt. That's it. He's not even the real snapper. He's just the long snapper. He's not on any other play. Like, no wonder he played for 17 seasons or whatever. He didn't do anything.
That's right. If people are calling for the abolition.
He was in the Bears top 100.
Yes. Oh my gosh, was he really?
Yes, he was, and it's just fucking crazy.
That is nuts.
Like Curtis Conway wasn't, right? And
that is so fucking
maybe
nuts.
Conway was. I can't remember now.
I don't think he was, but that is
Patrick
crazy.
Manley was, though.
That is nuts. But you're absolutely right. A lot of people calling for the abolition of kicking in football. Well, yeah. I mean, let's start with the long snapper because that's just a wasted roster spot. Totally wasted. The whole idea of just having a roster spot dedicated to one guy doing that, it just like you just said, just
like couldn't Whitehair do that?
Well, I believe he is the emergency guy, but I think.
I mean, would you feel like, oh, he's incapable?
Well, he's been incapable of doing
it.
He
could do the long snap too.
Yeah, he's been incapable of doing the shotgun snap.
Yeah, well, we don't want to bring that up. Yeah, he did struggle. I mean, mightily at snaps, but it seems like since the midpoint of last year when they moved Daniels back to left guard, it feels like Cody's snaps have been pretty much on point.
Well, and part of that too is the fact that we are now seeing Mitch under center for almost 50% of of the snaps. In fact, in week 1, it was over 50%, and I think in week 2 is just slightly under 50%. So I think that has helped the team in a number of ways. It's helped Cody Whitehair with his snaps and being much more, and perhaps disguising the fact that he's not the greatest shotgun snapper of all the centers in the league. And it's also helped the run game and pass game. As Mitch himself said, being under center really helps me because, and this is something that he never did in college. He never was under center. So when he came to the NFL, he had to learn how to get his hands up on that guy's ass, get the snap, take a 3-step drop, take a 5-step drop, take a 7-step. He had to go through that whole learning process, but apparently he's picked it up really, really well, and working under center has really helped this defense because it's kept, offense, because it's kept defenses more honest. They have to now watch for the run more intensely, and they have to also guard more of the field, as he's alluded to in the soundbite I played earlier. So that is so effing great that the Chicago Bears have self-scouted and realized from a schematic standpoint, it just makes sense to be under center more often. It's helped the run game. It's helped the offensive line. It's helped the snaps. It's helped our quarterback. Good stuff.
I completely advocate everything you're selling there. I still worry that it could be 1st and goal from the 3, and we're going to be in the shotgun.
Yes. Every time I see that ghost backfield, I don't care what down, I don't care what the situation is, and I see 5 wide receivers, or I see the running back out there with the receivers, and there's no running back, I just cringe because I know something bad is going to happen.
Something I wanted to say, I agree. Something I wanted to say earlier, we were talking about the backs. I saw that Nall got in, but man, they did a little shitty short kick that Nall caught because they want to avoid Patterson.
Yeah, I saw that, right.
He looked incredibly uncomfortable running the ball. I was like, who is this? When he was running the ball, I thought it was a lineman at first, and I was like, shit, that's 35. That's Nall.
Yeah, I would love to see them dedicate a series just to him. Give David Montgomery a break and not have Cordero Patterson there, although I like the idea of Patterson in that halfback position. But I'd love to see Ryan Nall get a full series and him get some handoffs and so forth, because I do believe that he's a weapon. And but perhaps the coaching staff has seen him in practice and they're just not comfortable doing that. He definitely has value in the special teams. The word is that Chris Tabor loves him for his special teams play. He plays all of the what's it called when you play all 6 of the special teams? There's a word for that, man, I'm forgetting. But nonetheless, Ryan Nall is a valuable part of this team, and I still hold out hope that he's going to prove that he's also an offensive weapon.
Well, he got in. You remember he caught a pass.
Yes, he did.
I think, but maybe it's because Montgomery was hurt. But yeah, I could see him. What I get encouragement from is as we go into week 3, they haven't really gotten a lot of production from the tight ends yet. It's not that they didn't try, because Graham was utilized more in week 1, but every game you can't do the same thing, as we know. Mm-hmm. But Tariq Cohen's kind of, really not been used yet. And we haven't had a big game from the rookie Kmet yet, or Jimmy Graham yet. And you still have to think at some point, unless he's traded, that Ted Ginn's going to have a moment. Whether it's a touchdown catch or a big, just a seam route or go deep, streaks, something. So, I mean, there's a lot of, and Nagy likes to get all of his shit in, like I was saying earlier. Yeah. At some point, there's a lot of toys in the box that haven't been used yet.
Right.
And they're 2-0.
Right.
And the defense should be getting better, as we keep saying.
I'll tell you this about Ted Ginn. He's, to me, insurance. He's insurance if Darnell Mooney gets hurt, or maybe some of the other wide receivers. Darnell Mooney, hopefully, is going to continue to improve, and we'll never see Ted Ginn on the football field. Ted Ginn
Why not have them both active, though? Maybe on a second or third down at some point, and have both on the field at the same time. Who are you going to stop now, motherfucker?
Okay. Let's go ahead and activate Ted Ginn for the game against the Falcons. Who do you deactivate? Because that's always the question.
I mean, Wims has done well in his 2 catches. They've been timely. But if you listen to Nagy's presser, I think it was Sunday, maybe Monday, he said something to the effect of it's not anything against Ted Ginn or what he is or isn't doing. It just he got caught up in the numbers.
Exactly.
So that could definitely be Javon Wims, maybe for 1 week.
I would, a guy like Javon Wims, who I've seen I've seen enough of Javon Wims to think this guy could play in the NFL for the next 8 to 10 years.
Okay, maybe you deactivate Holtz for 1 week.
That is probably a good thing, given that we've got 3 other tight ends above him in the depth chart with Harris, Kmet, and Jimmy Graham.
And it seems like we can actually run the ball this year without having him at fullback, which was the only way they could run it last year.
Yes, that's a good point. So yes, I would vote for that. If we were in the coach's room and you said, okay, I really want Ted Ginn in the lineup this week. All right, well, who do you sit? Holtz. All right, let's do it. Let's try it, because I would love to see those 2 speedsters out on the field at the same time. And you better believe that's going to open up the middle of the field for Robinson or whoever the tight end is on that particular play, or for the running back coming out of the backfield to catch passes. Tariq Cohen, a draw, absolutely, yeah. And I bet you that's in the future. You know, we got 14 games left. It'll happen maybe game 3, game 4, game 6, game 9.
I hope. It just feels like like in 2004, I always was saying, why not have Thomas Jones and Anthony Thomas on the field at the same time?
Yes.
And we never saw that, you know, and I was kind of yelling for Michael Bush and Matt Forte at the same time as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, back in I had this vision of the Browns, like when they had like Biner and Mack on at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's kind of the Bears really never take advantage. Like if we had, like I see Mooney and Ted Ginn both being Willie Gault.
Yeah.
Would the Bears play 2 Willie Gaults at the same time? Probably not.
Hell no.
And they're like, nah, where's that fucking the white guy that McMahon likes? That's why he had the high tops. God, Marjoram? Where's Ken Marjoram? He's going to be in there. Take their Willie out. But
I got to tell you, when Ken Marjoram was drafted out of Stanford, I was so hyped, because I remember seeing a couple of Stanford football games, and this guy was making Lynn Swan type catches, these acrobatic catches, and I was so super excited that he was now going to be a member of the Bears, and we could potentially have a guy who is going to catch passes like one of the greatest wide receivers of all time. No, not to be. He was okay, but he was definitely no Lynn Swan.
He caught McMahon's first touchdown.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and you know, like in '86, because Dennis McKinnon was out for the year after the Super Bowl, he was hurt, and so was Leslie Frazier, and Frazier never played again. But so you lose McKinnon for the whole season, and then somewhere midway through the year, Ditka cuts Marjoram. So now their starting wide receivers are like Willie Gault and God damn it, what's the guy that was returning kicks late in '85? Oh, fuck.
Wasn't Dennis Gentry in '85?
No. Gentry's solid. I can't. Let me get to it. My point was to say that the second receiver, when they cut Marjoram, that would come back to haunt them, because later in the year they didn't have a second receiver.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, God. Keith Ortego.
Oh, my goodness. Keith Ortego.
Yeah, there are a lot of games in '86, like later in the year, when the starting receivers are Gault and Ortego.
Oh, my gosh. You're so right. Jeez.
So if you have Ken Marjoram then, I mean, we probably, if they'd have kept him, because he went to San Francisco and they cut him.
Yes, he did. And he was the perfect West Coast offense wide receiver, and I was always shocked that he did not have a more prolific NFL career. But there were stories, and I always hate to share rumors, so I'll just say there were allegations that he, used to partake a little bit on the hallucinogenics and so forth. So yeah, imagine that from a West Coast guy. So I just that's part of the reason perhaps why he did not have a.
If I could reminisce about '85, just one more minute,
please. I love it when you do
in the show.
And then we'll talk a little bit about Sayers to wind things up. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I have a This Day in History one for you, too.
Excellent.
I don't have the highlights. I should have gotten them, but I just didn't have the time. But anyway.
No problem.
just real quick. I was thinking about this. Jeff Dickerson or Dan Wiederer. I'll focus on Dickerson. If this were going into week 3 of 85, what would Jeff Dickerson be saying about this Bears team? Because I know I'm not going to imply that Dickerson is just negative or Dan Wiederer is just negative just because they intentionally want to be. Like, I'm not saying that they're intellectually dishonest, in other words.
Okay.
I'm not saying that they secretly really think Mitch is going to put it together. No. I'm just saying, regardless of who the Bears have or the situation, these fucking guys are never happy or never convinced of anything positive is going to happen. And I think if this were 85, I was mowing the lawn yesterday thinking this. I don't know why. Just trying to get through the fucking, I'm like, I got to get to work. And for some distracting myself, I'm thinking about these. What would Jeff Dickerson be saying about the 85 Bears? I think he'd be saying, well, that's more of a pace. Well, he would say, Cap, the quarterback. I don't know. Jim McMahon is coming off a kidney. He's coming off a lacerated kidney. I think, I just feel like the quarterback he's not steady. Walter's a year older. Wilbur Marshall's unproven. I mean, where's Todd Bell? We don't know about this Dave Dorison guy. And I think Al Harris, that's a big loss. And Buddy and Ditka, they're not seeing eye to eye. I see they struggled to beat Tampa Bay in week 1. They played an inferior Patriots team in week 2. They got lucky to win in week 1 against Tampa. They were down. They gave up 28 points to Steve DeBerg in week 1. You know what? I see 9-7 from this team. I mean, if all things go well, when I don't think they're going to, maybe 10-6 again, like last year's team. But I see 8-8, 9-7.
Well, I bet you that there are guys listening, and maybe gals too, listening to what you just said and say, oh, yeah, well, that's exactly what was happening. It wasn't Dickerson and some of the other guys, but that was exactly what was happening with the guy from NBC Sports here in Chicago and reporter from the Sun-Times and so forth. There was a lot of that going on in 85. It wasn't until the 44-0 win against the Dallas Cowboys, there were all of a sudden the media started saying, wait a minute, holy shit, we just beat America's team and we looked really dominant doing it, that all of a sudden people were like thinking, yeah, maybe this is a truly special team. But yeah, and I vaguely remember there being a lot of negative stuff through game 2, 3, 4, 5. And then after the loss to the Dolphins on Monday Night Football, all of the naysayers were coming out. Yeah, this is it. The Bears are going to blow this. They just came out with the Super Bowl shuffle. It's over. They're going to ruin it. So you're absolutely, absolutely right.
I'll give you the truth serum on one, too, real quick.
Okay.
I'll steal that from Tom Waddle.
Tommy.
Do you think, let's assume, just for a minute, AFC Championship, the Bears played first.
Mm-hmm.
They beat the Rams. They're chilling, whatever, happy, Super Bowl, New Orleans bound.
Mm-hmm.
The rain at the Orange Bowl subsides, and somehow Marino comes back and beats the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
Do the Bears beat the Dolphins?
Yes, they do.
Now, I've heard people like Dan Hampton and Mongo saying that's what they wanted.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they wanted because
they
didn't think New England could give them a game and they wanted retribution.
Right.
But if there's the one guy that you're like, oh, I don't know if I want to face him again, then maybe it's Marino. I mean,
yeah.
Marino seemed to expose their ability. Like Wilbur's not really a cover linebacker there,
Correct.
They were setting up like a lot of mismatches with Duper running inside. I'm just saying if I'm going to write a script to say that one team that they probably should have feared the most out of the AFC playoff bracket, probably the Dolphins.
Yeah. Here's the thing about that, and football is. It was such a beautiful sport because there's so many elements involved. There's the genius, the analytics, there's the intelligence, and then there's also the emotion. And so what would have happened that night on Saturday night? What did happen was that Buddy Ryan made a speech to his defensive players. He talked to them about how much he loved them. Everybody knew he was leaving. He was going to get a coaching job with the Philadelphia Eagles. But he had every defensive player in that meeting room in tears. And when he walked out, Bears players were picking up furniture and throwing it against the wall. They were just so upset. Yeah, right. They were so upset that that the team was losing what they believed was the true leader of the entire team, and that they would not be at that Super Bowl if it were not for Buddy Ryan. And they sided more with Buddy than they did with Mike Ditka, which is why they lifted Buddy on their shoulders and carried him off. So I believe that because of that emotion, no matter who they would have faced, Dan Marino or the second coming of you-know-who, they would have dominated, because I believe that emotion and talent, and they had plenty of that, would have overcome whatever obstacle they would have had.
Well, I would like to agree with you, and I'm not saying I disagree with you. I will never know, but I'm just saying, like, I don't want to shit on Tony Eason, but
please do.
In the '83 draft, I mean, I would he was better than Todd Blackledge, but I would rather have Elway or Kenny O'Brien or Dan Marino over him. So.
Absolutely. All right, let's talk a little bit about Sayers, because I know you've got to dash in about, 10, 15 minutes?
Exactly. Unfortunately, with that, and unfortunately that I never got to see Mr. number 40 play. Mm-hmm. Not because you can't even get old games from that era.
Yeah. But
if you want to buy old games, they pretty much start regular season wise around 77.
Yes, that is true.
With the exception of some Monday night games and things like that. So Gale's way gone by then.
Right. I actually had somebody very close to me who was a Cleveland Browns fan and loved that Jim Brown era, and I tried to buy him some NFL films, and what they offered in their catalog and their library was just really terrible stuff. And in fact, in the VHS that I purchased for them, it had like a disclaimer. This was before the NFL films really learned how to shoot movies, and so we apologize for the inferior quality. So, yeah, there's not a lot of great stuff about Gale Sayers, but you can go on YouTube. And in fact, you can also go on our Twitter account, @BearsBarroom. I've been posting great plays by Gale Sayers, and will continue to do so for the next several plays. Just some highlights that I've dug up on the internet. You can't find the complete game, so it's really, really difficult to see what he did to change the complexion of the game with his exploits. But I just want to say this. When I first started watching football, this was the guy. You know, I was learning about the game of pro football, and I would read the newspaper articles, and they kept talking about Gale Sayers, this great guy. Well, I got to see this guy play. And boy, oh boy, you talk about grace. You know, the beauty of football is when, the Lynn Swans are making those acrobatic catches, and when Brett Favre, goddamn, I had to bring up Brett Favre, fuck. But when Brett Favre is throwing those bullet passes, but it's also about Gale Sayers and just the cutting ability, the grace when he's running on mud and sliding into the end zone for a touchdown. Just poetic. I think that's the best
I got
way.
a good question for you.
Okay.
Now this coming, because everybody and I'm right on this. Like, let's talk about why the Bears didn't win another Super Bowl. I'm always on this, late 80s dissection of what happened, what really happened.
You've got a great special on now, why the 85 Bears. And people who like this show, you should definitely look at Bears Barroom's catalog of Dan's history specials. That 85 special is an outstanding piece of work.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think that's what I was going to my question. Again, because I couldn't go back and watch these games in the 60s.
Right.
I really don't know the answer to this. It's not rhetorical in any way. Mm-hmm. So the Bears win a championship in 63. Mm-hmm. By 65, they have arguably the best defensive player in the league, mm-hmm. and arguably the best back in the league, because Jim Brown is going to retire.
Right.
So now you've got Sayers and you got Butkus, and you're just coming off a championship 2 years before, but in just a couple of years, you're going to be 1-13.
Right.
how the fuck does this happen?
Yeah.
What is Halas doing here? Like, how did he fuck this up?
There was some really poor player personnel decisions, some poor trades.
George Allen left, right?
George
So,
Allen
guess that
left.
hurt.
That was huge because everybody knew that 63 team would not have won the NFL championship if it wasn't for two things. Number one, George Allen's defensive genius, and number two, the fact that Paul Hornung was suspended
for gambling or whatever it was.
Exactly. And so everyone, and in 63, I wasn't following the Bears, but based on my research, everyone felt that the Green Bay Packers were a far superior team, and that the only thing that stopped them from winning that championship that year was the fact that Hornung was not on the field. And you can talk to Mike North about that, who was actually at the 1963 NFL championship game against Mike North. So I will make sure to.
Does he have the program or something?
No, I don't think he does.
The ticket stub? Anything?
I'll ask
that would
him.
be so cool for him to tweet it out if he did.
Well, I will have you ask him, because I'm going to make you the promise that I'm going to have a show with you and Les Grobstein. Maybe the three of you together would be outstanding. Oh my
I don't know
gosh.
if I'm in those guys' league, but
Well,
I would be honored to do it.
Yeah, I mean, just you asking them questions and interacting with them would be outstanding podcast. Oh my gosh. But back to Sayers, he just an incredibly gifted running back, and George Halas. I mean, I don't know if these were his words or some scriptwriter came up with them, but when he said the likes of him will never be seen again, and I might not have gotten that completely right, but those are just so perfectly said about Gale Sayers. This guy was one of a kind, no doubt about it.
Well, and I've even heard Mike North say it like, typical Bears to lose that coin toss and not get Bradshaw in 70. But, I mean, you got Dick Butkus and Gale Sayers in the same draft in 65. So there is some luck there. Yeah. But I think the Bears really shit the bed there. And I don't even know the context of why. They didn't even have a playoff game with those guys.
They did not.
Sayers and Butkus never played in a postseason game.
Yeah. Well, and I think
that's criminal.
And I think part of it was that George was, as the leader of the organization, and he was the head coach for a number of those years, he was starting to kind of wind down, and the league was catching up with what he did. And he had turned the reins over to Jim Dooley, and Jim Dooley, had his strengths, but he wasn't a head coach. There were some problems with the offensive line, and the offense was struggling at that time, despite the presence of a Gale Sayers, and so it was a combination of things that stopped that team from really benefiting from the fact that they had Sayers and Butkus, two of the greatest players in the history of the game. You can't win with just two superstars. You need an entire football team, and they didn't have it from the coaching perspective and from a full roster. They just did not have it. It was sad to see. It really, really was. And when they lost that coin flip, I'll never forget hearing about it on the radio on the way home from a trip. And I was just almost in tears because I knew that they had lost the chance of getting Bradshaw. And then they trade the second overall pick for a bunch of Packers who all sucked. It was awful. It was just awful.
And that's a comparison, too, that I've heard a lot of people make is between Trubisky and Bradshaw.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a old NFL Films piece for years with Al Davis.
Mm-hmm.
And it was leading up to somewhere in the 74 season, because they had benched Terry and they had Joe Gilliam playing. And I guess Pittsburgh played Oakland in the regular season that year. Of course, they would eventually beat them in AFC Championship and go on to win Super Bowl IX.
Mm-hmm.
But at some point during that year, Terry came up to Al and said, "Hey, get me out of here.
Yeah.
Make a move for me. I know you want to throw the ball. I want to throw the ball.
All right.
Make a move." And Terry said, "Well, fuck, man, I've got Stabler in now." And he still had Daryl LaMonica as the backup.
Right.
He's like, I don't have a move for you, or I would. I have immense respect for you. So he said that he called, the old man, and said, hey, the chief, Mr. Rooney, why the fuck aren't you playing Bradshaw? He's the better player. I mean, he's superior. What's going on? He said, I wish I hadn't made that call. Because again, history being what it is, he's just like, God, that would be the guy that would knock us out of 2 straight AFC Championship games. And Al took a lot of credit for that, saying that his phone call was a lot to do with Bradshaw getting his job back.
That's amazing. I had not heard that story. That's amazing.
He said he regretted it. Even Terry was on the NFL film saying he went to Al and said, hey, get me out of here. Trade for me.
Yeah, I am.
He was done. He was just so frustrated, and he was thought of as a bust.
Right. He not only a bust, but that he was a stupid hillbilly hick who was not smart enough to run an NFL
or spell cat.
That's right.
Thomas Henderson said.
That's right. I forgot about that. And so he was going through a horrendous time in his early part of his career with the Steelers, and so.
And I'm not saying Trubisky's going to win 4 Super Bowls because Terry was surrounded by Hall of Famers.
Oh my goodness! What a stellar draft! What a number of stellar drafts they had.
And it didn't hurt that they were on steroids.
That is for sure.
Which has been proven at this point.
Oh well, everybody was. So
I'm just saying he's surrounded by great players that maybe Trubisky isn't, but it's still I'm not ready to write him off yet. And to bring it full circle, because I do have to go in less than 10 minutes, I think Trubisky, let's just give him a chance. I mean, he's got we don't know if he's going to have the whole year, but I heard people say this week there's a chance that Foles will get in the Falcons game. Like,
really?
To me, that's insane. That's insane. That's crazy talk. Like,
yes.
Mitch has played well enough, especially being at 2-0, to where the Falcons game is his unless he's injured.
Mm-hmm. All right,
in my opinion.
Let's do this day in history before you get out of here.
All right. I've mentioned this game a few times, but it's worth revisiting for anybody that didn't see it if they were too young, like Braggs or somebody that was just, not around yet. The 1991 NFL Week 4 matchup, Monday Night Football, September the 23rd, 1991. The 3-0 Chicago Bears, after beating the defending world champions, and I heard Dan Hampton say this week that Jeff Hostetler was not a good quarterback.
Really?
But yet his last game was at the Meadowlands getting beaten by not a good quarterback from West Virginia University, Jeff Hostetler, who would go on to win Super Bowl 25. His point was to say that the Giants were able to run schemes and cover up from the fact that he wasn't anywhere as near as good as Phil Simms.
Yeah.
So his point was to praise the Giants' ability to play offense around his deficiencies and hide them, exceed the positive, accentuate the positives and run from the negatives. And that's what Nagy really needs to do with Trubisky. But so they're 3-0. It's Monday Night Football. They're hosting the New York Jets. The Jets are 1-2. They got a defensive coordinator you'll know named Pete Carroll. And they come in. This would be Tom Waddle's night to shine on the big stage. 8 catches, 102 yards. It was the first primetime game for Mr. Waddle. Harbaugh was 28 of 42 for 303 yards. But this game, the whole game, it's confounding. You're like, why are the Bears playing down to these fucking Jets? It was 3-3, then it's 6-3, and then it's 13-3, 13-3 Jets, and it's 13-6 with like a minute to go. The Bears are going to lose. The Jets are running the clock out. Half the stadium's gone. It's after midnight Eastern time. Everyone's frustrated. Everyone's booing. And when they're running the clock out, Blair Thomas gets stripped by Mongo. Just incredible play. And the Bears suddenly get another chance, which is just like would never happen. With no time on the clock, Harbaugh finds Neil Anderson in the corner. He catches it. It's a touchdown. We're going to overtime. The overtime period is almost a tie now. Literally under a minute to go in the 15-minute overtime, no less. And then Harbaugh finds Cat Bozo, who has the sod in his helmet. We mentioned that before.
Yep.
And it's a touchdown, and everyone said the Bears won, and they survived. And then they say, no, he didn't. He didn't. His knee's down. So everyone has to come back from the locker room.
That's right.
They come back onto the field, and at that point, Harbaugh scores with the quarterback sneak. If he doesn't get in, it's going to be a tie.
Right.
But he gets in, and the Bears win. A game that lasted until, I'm in the 4th grade that year, and it's a school night for me, and I got to get up. It's like 6:20 a.m. or something crazy, and it's more like 1:20 when it ends.
Right.
For me.
Yeah.
The Bears win 19-13 on this day, September 23rd, 1991. You talk about stealing a victory, and they would be 4-0, and in the next 2 weeks, which we'll set up, I'll bring it back. They would lose to Buffalo, who would go on to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl, and the team that would win the Super Bowl that year, the Redskins, in week 6. But they played Buffalo really tight in the first half, and if they could have just blocked Charles Mann, they could have beaten Washington. He had like 5 sacks that day.
Oh my goodness.
But to bring this full circle, I was thinking the 2-0 Bears right now, is this more like the 2002 Bears that start the year 2-0 and then lose 8 straight, or maybe the 89 Bears that start the year 4-0 and lose however fucking many straight to finish the year, 6 straight, I think?
Yeah.
And they finish the year 6-10 after starting 4-0?
Right.
Or is this, a season that we shock people? Even because there's 7 playoff teams now. It's not that big of a stretch to say you could be the 3rd wild card team. And of course, we want the division championship. We're wanting more, but is it this 2-0? Maybe you can galvanize that and at the very least get one of those wild card spots, or is it more akin to 2002 or 1989? I guess we'll find out.
Well, I got to tell you this before you leave. In 30 seconds, I will tell you that I have always wanted to be the Tom Landry or the Bill Walsh, the stoic, contemplative, rational thinker about things like that. But inevitably, I always turn out to be the Mike Ditka. Go Bears! And so, yes, they are going to go out there and win every fucking game. They're going to just destroy the rest of the league because I love this team so much and I want them to do well. And I just won't allow reality to seep in and say, they're probably going to lose the rest of the games in the schedule. So that's the way it goes.
Well, since you bring up Landry, and I do got to go, but it's worth mentioning. I'll try to draw a comparison for us to have optimism.
Good.
The Bears had this, Nick Foles, Mitch Trubisky, who's going to be the starter, right? We went through that all summer.
Right.
Through the whole offseason. Dallas in 1971, ironically, lost to the Bears.
That's right. I remember that game.
And they were 4-3. And at that point, Landry didn't know what he was going to do so much with Craig Morton and Roger Staubach that he was alternating them after every other play.
That's right. That game was not on TV here in Chicago. It was blacked out because it was not sold out, and so they had the blackout rule back then. So I was listening under the radio on that fucking game. Yeah, go ahead, please.
That's amazing.
Yes.
But so the Bears win that game. The Cowboys fall to 4-3, and they look like internally they're imploding. So he settles on Staubach as the starter, and they don't lose again.
That's right.
They literally don't lose again. I'm looking now. They're 4-3. They finished the year 11-3, and they win all 3 of their playoff games. So I'm not saying we're going to win the Super Bowl. I'm just saying that both of those situations came from a tumultuous, who the fuck is our quarterback?
That's right.
And then you turn that into a Super Bowl. Mike Ditka, there's your connection. Ditka was their tight end, caught a touchdown in Super Bowl 6. So I don't know, man, but maybe. I'm not willing to give up on the season. I'm going to be 40 years old this year, and there've been too many lost seasons for me, for you, for everybody listening. where we just say, oh, what about next year? Maybe we can get another quarterback or another this guy or fire this guy or hire this guy. There's too much of that shit.
Absolutely. Hey, and before I let you go, because I know you got to run, I got to ask you, are you doing another segment for the Barfly Tailgate Show? Because what you did last week, where you did this kind of review, you're writing a letter and thinking about, are you doing another one? Because that was brilliant. I loved it.
I haven't been contacted by Bobby Bombs, but I can.
I hope you do, because that's just a brilliant segment.
I stole the concept from Jimmy Fallon. Not that I'm a Fallon fan, but he has a segment called Thank You Notes.
Yes.
And before the pandemic, he would have the band, the Roots, would be playing like this instrumental, like this like sentimental song.
Yeah, a little piano thing. Ding, ding, ding.
And he would be reading thank you notes, but it would be like his mind. He wouldn't be saying it. It would be pre-recorded.
Right. It's what he's writing in the card. Right.
So I thought, that's what I'll do with my Bears diary.
Right.
But I completely stole the idea from Jimmy Fallon.
Well,
I give him full credit.
Absolutely. There are no original ideas anymore, and so we all steal ideas and make them our own. And I am so lucky to be doing this podcast with you. I'm sure we stole this idea from somebody else. At least I'm sure people are accusing us of that. But nonetheless, I'm so happy to be doing this with you. This is 2 hours of us talking football, like two guys at a bar having a beer and talking football. And I just love it. We're bearing our souls. We love this team, and we hope that they win some games, get into the playoffs, take us to the Super Bowl, give us a good time this season.
This time.
Yes, please. But I love you. Go to work, go make some money, and we'll do this again next week, okay?
And I think we're going to be 3-0.
All right, and I'll be expecting your text on Sunday saying, boy, this defense is great. You were right, I was wrong.
I hope you get it.
All right, brother.
All right, you be well. Have a good night, sir.
All right.
Bye.